that feels so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to talk about formula this morning. How many of you are great at math? Anybody, any mathematicians in here? Perfect. This is going to be a great conversation, Bob, because I'm horrible at it. But there are some formulas I do understand, doctor. You raised your hand. Yeah. Well, that's because you're a doctor and you're smart. Yeah. So, okay. So I want to talk formulas. So if I say to you McDonald's, what do you think of?
Hamburger.
Okay, right. Right now, does McDonald's make the best hamburgers, gang?
No.
But when I said McDonald's, you thought hamburgers. Who sells more hamburgers?
McDonald's.
Are you guys confused? Who makes more hamburgers?
The beef
Right,
organization.
McDonald's. No, In-N-Out doesn't even come close to the number of. But who makes a better hamburger? In-N-Out or McDonald's?
In-N-Out.
Neither one of them. It's Five Guys. It's a catch. Who makes the best hamburger? Come on. You do, okay. I do actually. I had a JCW's burger this weekend. If you haven't had one of those are exceptionally good. Those are like homegrown. Who makes the best burger? Five Guys. There you go. See? And the fries, yes. Yeah.
In-N-Out.
Now,
Fries.
okay, In-N-Out.
Fries suck.
The fries are horrible, like cardboard.
Right.
They are, yes. But my point is that McDonald's, they may not have the best burger, but they sell more burgers than anybody in the world. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Right. And the reason for that is because they follow a what?
Formula.
A formula. Their formula may not be the best formula, but it works for them because they're in the business to do what?
Money.
Say it again.
Make
They're
money.
not in the business to make burgers. They're in the business to make money. Because if they were in the business to make burgers, wouldn't they make their burgers more like Five Guys?
Yeah.
Seriously, think about it. They don't care about the quality necessarily of the burger, as long as they sell enough of them to make as much what?
Money.
Money. Okay, so if I say Rolls Royce to you, what do you think? Right? Okay,
Money.
okay. What if I say to you money? It all comes down to money with you, right? Doesn't it? If I say Toyota, what comes to mind? Reliable, yeah. Right, yes, okay. I didn't hear any of you say reliable when I said Rolls Royce, which is interesting. Which one costs more? Why would anybody pay $500,000 for a car that's not as reliable as when they buy 25 or 30,000, which you can buy a Corolla for about that? Okay, all sorts of reasons why, right? But here's the thing. How long does it take to make an average Toyota?
25 minutes on an assembly line.
Well, it's in between there. A Toyota Corolla takes about 13 hours to build.
13 hours.
13 hours, which is not bad. You think about 13, every 13 hours they're popping out a Toyota Corolla and they have multiple plants and multiple production lines. So it's not as if every 13 hours they only produce one car. They're producing hundreds of cars every hour. But my point is that it takes about 13 hours to produce what we would consider to be a reliable but overall average car. Because a Toyota is an average car, yes or yes?
Yeah.
Right? But how long does it take to make a $500,000 Rolls Royce? Who said 6 months?
6 months is what I was thinking.
It is, it's 6 months. It takes 6 months. So you've got one car that takes 6 months, another one that takes 13 hours. And this one costs how much? $500,000. And this one costs how much? About $25,000 to $30,000. Right? What's the difference? I like that. That's funny. We probably will. But what is the difference? The V12, well, there's that as well.
Right.
The difference is the formula that they use. Don't they use a different formula?
Yes.
Does not Rolls Royce have a different formula than Toyota? Yes. Do they get different results? Completely different results. How many of you would pay $500,000 for a Toyota Corolla? How many of you would? Say not I.
Not I.
Right, so there is a difference, yes?
Yes.
And the difference is the formula that they use. We're in a market right now, gang, where you better pay attention to the formula that you're using. Is that hitting home at all?
Yes.
See, what is great about a formula? I want you to write this down. Formulas provide for predictability and duplication of outcome. Just think McDonald's, predictability and duplication of outcome. Okay? You get predictability and duplication of outcome. That is the great thing about a formula. You leverage a formula. Here, let's just prove it. If I say 10 times 10, Rob, what do you say? A lot. You're like, dude, I've memorized this so I can do it. 10 by 10 is what? 100. If I say 5 times 5 is what? 25. If I say 6,772 times 1,322, what's the answer? Yeah, 100 says, let me get my calculator, right? Yes, you could do that, but if you took out a piece of paper and a pen, you could do a what? Manually longhand. Could you not do that?
Yeah.
You could, because you understand the what? The formula. See, the great thing about a formula is if you will leverage it, use it, then over time, it will give you what? Predictability and duplication of outcome. Because again, if I said 7 times 7, you would say what? See, every time you use the formula, if you use it correctly, you'll get the correct what?
Outcome.
The correct outcome. Now, well, John, how does that apply to real estate? Well, it applies to real estate. How about you write these numbers down? Write down 240. Well, actually, you know what? Scratch that. Write down 365. Let's start with that. 365, which is the number of what in a year? Every day is in a year. Who gets more than 365 days in a year? Anybody? Right. Who gets less? Only those who are dead, right? So as far as we're concerned, everybody gets the same amount of time. Yes or yes? Okay, good. Now, so if we take how many weekends in a month? That was a trick question. Weekends in a month. 4 weekends in a month, and a weekend consists of how many days? Okay, so 2. Thank you. This is the answers I'm getting. Now we know why as Americans we don't do so well at math. Right. So on an annual basis, how many days is that spent on weekends? 96. Okay, so you start with 365, subtract from that 96, that leaves you with how many days? 269. It's close to that. If it's not, it's fine. Okay, but then let's assume that you take about 30 days of vacation here. That leaves you with that number, Aubrey, that you just said, which is what, 240? Okay. So imagine you got 240 days out of the year that you're actually what? Hopefully, come on. Thank you. I'll say that together. That leaves you with how many days out of the year? 240 that you're actually what? Working. Because this is a job like the normal real world. Dylan, if you don't do your job, you don't show up and do it, you're not going to get what? Hey, so it's 240 days out of the year that you're actually what? Working. What if you have the intention of setting one appointment every single day? Let's imagine that you did that. Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay, let me ask this. Is it realistic?
Yes.
I hate that word. So let's scratch that. It is always possible.
Awesome.
Is it possible to set 2 appointments a day? Is it possible to set 3 appointments a day?
Yeah.
I know agents who do. Brian Burnett down in St. George will do that easily every single day, 3 or 4 appointments every single day, like clockwork, right? But just imagine if you have the intention and every day you set 1 appointment. So if you set 1 appointment every day for 240 days, how many appointments is that annually? 240. Yeah, 240 appointments. So let's just imagine that half of those never happen. That leaves you with how many?
120.
So write that down, 120. So you go down 240, now 120. Now let's imagine, Rob, that you go on 120 of those appointments. You show up and you're successful in getting 1/3 of those. What's 1/3 of 120?
40.
Thank you, 40. You got 40. So now you've either signed 40 buyer broker agreements or 40 listing agreements or a combination thereof. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now let's imagine that 3/4 of those actually come to fruition. In other words, you sell the listing or you help them find a home that they close on. Make sense? That leaves you with how many transactions? 30. Now do your own math. What's your average commission per transaction? It's probably in that range, probably 12. So 12 times 12. Math again. 360. 360. Yeah, 360, right? 360, 360 what?
$1,000.
Let me ask you a question. Does that sound like a really good formula?
Yes.
It does. Do you know that, good morning, April. Do you know what the X factor is in that formula?
Working.
Look to your neighbor and say, you are.
Yeah.
Look to your neighbor and say, you are.
Yeah.
See, we're on the X factor now. We all know that those numbers work out. They do. The question is, are we going to actually apply the formula? See, 10 times 10 doesn't work. I don't get the answer if I don't use formula what? Correctly, and what? Consistently. See, I can't get predictability duplication of the right answer if I'm not leveraging the formula. Yes or yes?
Yes.
So why is it that we don't leverage the formula? Why is it we don't stick to the formula? I want you to write this down because people lack patience. We lack patience.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just give you some perspective here. When I was a kid, and it was around this time, actually it was actually in August. And those of you who are old enough to remember, if I say this to you, you're gonna say, oh yeah. It was called the Christmas Wish Book. You know what whose company that is? What company that is? The Christmas Wish Book? Yes, it was Sears. Sears, most of you probably don't know that name. They just successfully came out of bankruptcy about it. Like Sears was like the Walmart of my day when I was a kid, right? And the cool thing about Sears was this, Nick, that they would every August they would send out their Christmas Wish Book. It was a big catalog, and you could said that you could possibly order, and then of course she would scratch out the things that they couldn't afford, which was most of it, right? And then she would take that order form after everybody filled out the form and put in the things that they wanted, and she had done all of the elimination excising, right? And then she put it in an envelope. That was a piece of paper that was folded and kind of glued together, and you put paper in it. I'm looking at you because did you get how different it is today? See, because we would send that thing through the US Postal Service, and we'd get to Sears a couple of weeks later, and then Sears would work to fill the order, and we would get those products that we ordered about 2 to 3 months later. How many of you would put up with that process today? Say no one.
Yeah.
You wouldn't. See, when you order today, who do you use?
Amazon.
Amazon. When do they get it to you? Yesterday. It is so fast. It's like that. See, we become so impatient. You go to McDonald's, speaking of McDonald's, and you're in line, and you're in there for 2 minutes, you're getting, I gotta go. What is taking them so long? How many of you got irritated in fast food? Be honest, right? See, let me just say this. Success is not a happy meal. You can't just show up, order, and expect that you're gonna get it in 2 to 3 minutes. It doesn't work that way. Success requires that you stick to the formula, that you actually have what? Patience. Yes.
In many fast food places, the first word out of the person's mouth
Mhm.
or 2 words is "I'm sorry" when you go to the front to order.
That's interesting.
I'm sorry
For your weight.
Yeah, for your weight.
for the wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Let's see what time it is here.
I hear that a lot.
We're almost done, but and then I'm gonna give you a chance to just because I want to make sure that you promote. So my grandma would share with me a story when I was a kid about how she grew up. She grew up in Wyoming on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. I thought I grew up in the middle of nowhere with 1,000 people. She grew up in the middle of nowhere with a population of 9 people. That's how big the town was that she's from. And she would describe to me what it looked like on a day-to-day basis living on the ranch. They didn't have any electricity. They didn't have indoor plumbing, which you start to think about what implications does that have? Well, it means that you have to use gas lamps for lighting. You had to use a outhouse when you had to do your business, right? And they had to use the well to bring water in to do the various things that they do. Well, imagine making dinner, what that looked like. My grandma described that to me. She said, what they would do, April, they would go out to the hen house, grab a chicken. She would wring the chicken's neck, which means break it. Then her job was to pluck the feathers off of the chicken and then bring it into her mom, my great grandmother, Eleanor. And she would take the chicken and she would cut it up, put it in the various, like the breast and the leg and all of those things, right? And then all the while that's going on, my grandmother stoked the potbelly stove, right, which had the cooker on top. And then all the while she's doing that, then of course she's preparing all the other things for everything else that's going on, like the butter, because see, they would milk the cow, they would take the cream and the butter, and what would they do with it? They would churn it and make the butter. You get a sense that it took a little longer to prepare a meal than it does today, yes or yes?
Yes.
See, literally it would take her all day to prepare dinner. And when we get to a fast food restaurant, right, and it takes them more than the 2 or 3 minutes that we expect, we start to freak our minds. We've gotten so impatient that our grocery stores compete with KFC. You go into a grocery store and they have those, like that kiosk, it's a freestanding kiosk, and what's in the center of it? On top, chicken, roasted chickens. I mean, you've seen those in a bag? It's so convenient because you can just pick it up and carry it home with you. And how many of you started eating the chicken before you actually got home?
Oh, yeah.
We lack patience in today's world. We do. And gang, I'm just here to tell you that based upon the way the market is and the economy is and where people are mentally and emotionally, we have got to leverage proven formulas. And what I gave you this morning is a proven formula, but you have to stick with it. And if you will leverage it, you'll get predictability and duplication over time. You have to be patient. But if you are not going to be patient, you're the X factor, and that formula will not what? It won't work. But if you'll stick to the formula. Because here's the thing. I say this consistently. Don't derive your sense of self-confidence based upon the result that you get every single day. Derive your sense of self-confidence based upon the fact that you're leveraging the formula every single day. And if you'll do that, you'll get the results over time. But you have to be what? You have to be patient. All right. Having said that, Rob, I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about the amazing thing that you and your group's doing this year. So, and you're always doing it. So, Rob Adams.